Welcome to What's Going On, the weekly podcast and videocast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of What's Going On. I'm Pastor Katie here at First United Methodist in Yankton, South Dakota, and I'm glad you could join me for this episode. In this episode, we are going to talk about the new hires and the new staffing changes that have been recently kind of confirmed and announced in church. And so it's something I've been excited and kind of waiting to get to share. And it's one of those things where I really believe that God is at work. I know that the SPR team, and if you are unfamiliar with kind of the structure of our church leadership, let me take a couple steps back and kind of explain a little bit of the process, a little bit of how this all kind of came about and who is involved. So this spring, we announced that Tiffany Bestie, who has been on staff with us full time for about 3 years, and prior to that was on staff part time as our children's ministry coordinator, got a job at the school district. This is her dream job. We are so excited for her and so proud of her, and excited for what God is going to do through her in the school district. But that meant that we had work to do because since Tiffany was full-time, she kind of kept collecting roles, as you do when you're here and you're available and you're gifted, like Tiffany was gifted and is gifted. There's a lot of pieces and hats that she wore here at the church. And so the SPPR team, which is Staff Pastor Parish Relations Committee, you can sort of think of it as the church's HR. Really, that group is responsible for hiring and of staff. I really supervise the staff, but it's SPR that hires them. If we were ever in a position where a staff member needed to be let go, that would go through SPR. SPR also is the group that deals with pastoral transitions and evaluations of staff and the pastor and the church and lots of fun things. It's a really important group, and they are part of our leadership team. We are governed by a leadership team locally, and that covers our SPR group, finance, and trustees, who they handle anything in the physical part of the church, building, properties, insurance, that kind of thing. And then a few other random members. So anyway, it's the SPR group that got tasked when they learned of Tiffany's departure, of how are we going to move forward. And there were a lot of different pieces involved in making those decisions. One, the likelihood of finding someone who could just like take on all the things that Tiffany had done. Um, Slim to none is the chance that that would have happened, because again, that position was really tailored to Tiffany and her skill set and her passions and what she wanted to be doing and how she could serve the church in that way. Um, the second consideration was we're still looking at budget things, realizing that if we could lessen some of our budget around staffing, which is the biggest chunk of our budget, is our payroll, that would alleviate some of the anxiety around our bottom line. Which, by the way, overall, we're sitting really well. I want to just say a quick shout out to those of you who have been so faithful in your giving over the summer. That certainly helps. And as we move forward together as the church, your investment and your commitment helps make everything we do possible. So they had those things in mind. And so one of the things we realized pretty early on is that we probably would have the most success in splitting up the duties that Tiffany covered into a few part-time positions. And so Tiffany had expressed interest in keeping one of her positions, which was youth group coordinator. And she has done a phenomenal job with the youth group, building that group up over the last few years, being that steady leader and guide. And that's where her kids are involved. And so it makes a lot of sense that she wants to keep there and be invested. And I think she also, those of us who've been in youth ministry before, like it's an intimidating thing to, like, say you're gonna spend all this time with teenagers, but once you do it, then you kind of fall in love with it. So, totally not surprised that she was like, "I'm gonna stick with that." And I was like, "Absolutely. I would love for you to do that." I love having her on staff. I love that she's gonna continue to be on staff and that she's, again, found and followed what her calling is now. I think that's an important message for all of us. So Tiffany, when I came on staff here in 2020, Tiffany was on staff with our children's ministry and loving that and doing that really well. But it's okay for our callings and the way that we serve the church to change over time. And it's okay to let go of, even if you've done something for a long time, if that's not where your heart is anymore and you have another area that you really want to serve in, it's okay to do that. Um, and so like I love her example of that. That she didn't allow herself to be boxed in of this is what I've always done. Therefore I need to keep doing that, but rather to say, you know, this is where my heart is right now. Like over time, your experiences, your life situation, you know, change, things change. Did she kind of anticipate that that would be the way it was? I don't think so. And so sometimes it's about, you know, trying things out and realizing, oh my gosh, I actually really love this. So she is staying on with that. And so that has moved back to an hourly position for her, where before when she was full time, it was salaried. And so that left three different areas open that we needed to cover. One was our children's ministry. That would be 3-year-olds through fifth grade. Second would be oversight of our technology and in particular our equipment and our volunteers. Our volunteers include those who are helping to run the computer and soundboard and things on Sunday mornings. And then the third piece that she just took on this last year was Kids Hope coordinator. Kids Hope is our mentoring program. This is a nationwide program that we are part of and have worked with for many years at this point. In the past, uh, Julie Moderator was the Kids Hope coordinator director when I arrived. Well, there was no Kids Hope when I arrived because I arrived in the middle of COVID, but that she had taken that role on, and then when Julie stepped away last year, Tiffany took that on because she saw it as part of her children's ministry and she had capacity to do so. Um, and then there's just a random smattering of other things that she did that we had to sort of parse out. We had to take one job description and break it apart into things that we believed we could find people to do, or that people would be inspired or capable of wanting to do. And then had to advertise that and then wait and see who might apply. That is a very nerve wracking process in general because you just pray that God puts the right people in your path. Um, I would say that this time around, for whatever reason, I never felt anxious over the process. Um, there was some staff turnover when I came, and that one I definitely felt more anxious about just because I didn't know Yankton, I didn't know the church, I didn't know um, what God would provide. And in that time, God provided Tiffany for us. And what a blessing that turned out to be. And so this time around, I just rested in God's faithfulness and goodness that God would put the right people in our path, and that it would work out, and that we would find our way forward, and that there would be blessing no matter what happened. I know that that was much tougher for my SPR team, who um, by the nature of the leadership team, people rotate on and rotate off in 3-year uh, stints, and none of the current SPR were actually on SPR when we hired Tiffany, and actually Sarah Clavon for that matter. Um, and so, you know, for them, this was much more nerve wracking. As you know, how is this all going to work out? Do we have all of our I's dotted, our T's crossed, and that sort of thing? So in that process, I think something for me a little bit unexpected happened in that the people who applied for these positions were all people who already worked at the church. So I felt like there are 2 ways I can look at this, right? One is, man, why is nobody new stepping up or being inspired to take on a new role or to wanna be on staff? Um, there was part of me that felt a little, like, bummed by that, I don't know if there's, like, a perception that's weird or I don't know, or just not ready, not feeling the call, or feeling intimidated because you feel like in order to work for a church, you need to be some kind of something, right? Like, you need to be some sort of saint or extra holy or extra whatever, um, and I can get that feeling of when you work at a church, you represent the church in a different sort of way, and that can be intimidating. And I wonder if maybe some of all of that was happening. But then the other way I can look at it is when we had openings, the people who work for the church, um, multiple people who already work for the church wanted to work for the church even more. And that, as a supervisor, as a boss of some sorts, as a pastor, was really validating and really awesome because that meant that we as a church are treating our staff well, that our staff are feeling uh, invested and called and willing to invest more into what we're doing. And even as I talked with Tiffany, as was anticipating making the transition back to the school, the conversations were always like, it's hard to leave something that you love. And it's hard to know that you're making the right choice. But, this was the opportunity was such a great opportunity for her and also something that she loved. And so it was never about like that she was unhappy here or unfulfilled, I think, in any way, but that this was just something she couldn't pass up for her own sake. And so I just want you to hear that. So much of things that go on with staff and sort of behind, so much of that's confidential, but this piece of it I think is really important to hear that there is a really healthy culture in our church and especially among the staff that our current staff were like, we love it here. We want to continue to be here. We want to be here even more than we currently are. And we want to invest back into the ministry of this church in this way. And I think that's pretty awesome. And I hope that you see that. And I hope that you can appreciate that because that's not everywhere. I've been on staff at churches. I've worked, I think I mentioned in churches last Sunday, I've had almost every job in a church you can have. Not children's ministry, but I would say that I was not qualified, nor would I have been the right candidate for a children's ministry position. I still might not be the right candidate, but I'm a lot more qualified now that I have children than I ever have been before. Um, but it's just a pretty it's something that makes me very proud. Um, and so let's dive in. So for our children's ministry, uh, this one I was not anticipating. I didn't see it, and I don't know why. Like I look back on it now, and I'm like, "Duh, Katie, like this makes a lot of sense." But um, Sarah Clavan, who's been on staff with us as our praise team coordinator, and last year she expanded that role into doing music with our kids and doing the children's bell choir. Applied for the children's ministry position. Sarah's background in education is in education and music, and she's very clearly always had a passion for children and children's ministry. But prior to coming to us, she worked on staff at churches in music, but she also ran vacation Bible schools, like traveling vacation Bible schools for years. And I'm very excited to see. Um, Sarah's one of those people that, as we've gotten to know her over the years, one of the things that's really incredible about her is her ability to connect with children, uh, which can seem to someone maybe like an older adult who's not used to being around kids. so much, it can seem like, "What is she doing?" It seems very maybe, fly by the seat of your pants, but what I've come to learn with Sarah is that's actually not the case, that she's very intentional, that she, I tend to work in advance as much as I can in planning sermon series and the different things that I'm doing in the church, and part of the reason I do that is because then my staff, like Sarah, have that much more time to coordinate with me on music and on different things that they're doing. And Sarah has really taken that seriously, even showing up to her interview with a book for an upcoming sermon series that we'll be doing in September. So she's tracking with me on that early planning, on thinking through and the music choices that she has come up with over the time that she's been here have always tracked so well with what I'm preaching on. I feel like we have a very good communication understanding of what I'm trying to accomplish, especially being a church that is welcoming to children, that children know and understand that the church is a place for them, that they belong here as much as anybody else belongs here, and that I want them to want to be here. And Sarah very much understands that and brings also a depth of spirituality to it in a way that is accessible to children. And so I'm very excited about what she has planned, the things that she wants to be doing to really grow and expand our children's ministry. She's got some ideas up her sleeve about how to engage and include our families with children who are not quite 605 age, so that they are getting connected and feeling comfortable, and that their children are feeling comfortable at the church and part of the community, because they should be. But that's a very difficult age for any family. Um, I mean, my youngest is 2.5. I get it. I understand. I mean, we are in it and have been in it for years. And so I'm just so excited. I'm so excited to have her continue. She's been such she came to us in such an out of the blue way, and she's ended up being such a blessing, and she's such a team player. She's Her kids are invested and have been active in our 605 ministry. She's got another one in confirmation. She's just uh, an incredible person, and we're lucky that God brought her into our life when God did. The next one is technology, and this one was it's being handled a little bit differently. So we did split up some of the things that kind of fell under Tiffany and technology into two, and one half of it is being covered by staff in the office, and the other half is being covered by Allison Spock. Allison has been on staff part-time for the church basically since a month after I got here. She got hired while we were still out in the parking lot to do the soundboard and to run that, and she's basically been here every week, I think, in the last 4 years, minus maybe 3, 4 weeks or something, like, crazy like that. I think she's here more Sundays in a year than I am. Um, she's been incredibly faithful and doing the work of managing the sound, which is such a big job, but she has, um the word that's coming to my mind is oodles. She has oodles of experience. She This is her background. This is like her hobby. This is her passion, is doing sound and all kinds of things. It's techie stuff, and so she's going to take on. So not only running sound, but also she's been training with Tiffany on importing stuff into ProPresenter. ProPresenter is the program we use to run the screens and the live stream and all of that. So Allison's going to take on the job of kind of inputting things into there, and also managing the volunteers that are needed for that, as well as the equipment. And so if we have a mic that doesn't work or a cord that is out, it's Allison who's going to be managing all of that. The other side of Tiffany's technology job that Allison is not going to be taking on is sort of the social media side of things. Um, and so that's falling on me, and that's falling on Lisa here in the church office. So things like that probably you never knew that she did, but um, uh, editing the radio broadcast, pulling out the sermon and scripture to post on Facebook. We have audio podcasts of both the sermon and what's going on, as well as the what's going on video that you might be watching or you might be listening to our audio podcast. Tiffany edited those the entire time that she was here. That's all falling back to me now, which I will tell you, it's a lot harder because I think I'm a much bigger critic of me than Tiffany ever was of me. Um, so if things look a little different or sound a little different, that's because I've taken those pieces back on. Lisa in the church office is covering things like the website, um, the directory, different anything that has to do with that side of things. Lisa's doing that, and we're sharing some of the like Facebook posting and things like that. So we're kind of taking some of those pieces back on. It was just the most natural choice because we're here, and those are things actually I was doing those prior to Tiffany coming. It was a nice thing to hand off, but a pretty natural thing for me to take back on. If you have a passion, um, for some of those things, maybe come talk to me. And I'm not saying that I can offer you a job, but if that's something where you were like, I don't know, maybe that's some way I can give back to the church. Let's have a conversation about it. Um, I will be honest, I'm a little bit particular about things liking things in a certain way. I wouldn't say that I'm like overly as a boss that I'm overly um what's the word? Micromanaging? But I might be. I mean, partially I love doing that kind of stuff. I find it very therapeutic, getting to be creative. I make all my own sermon slides. I find that fun. So we'll see. And then the third piece is the Kids Hope director position. This is a very part-time position as well. So I should say that Allison's position basically is just expanding her current role. So she will continue on doing the soundboard, but she will also do these other things. So her role was basically just expanded. And then Kids Hope Director. This role is a very part-time role. Basically, the director recruits mentors for the kids at Beetle Elementary, where we are partnered. Beetle lets us know when there's a kid who is in need of a mentor, and then the director needs to recruit and help train that mentor. Training happens online through Kids Hope, um, but the director kind of helps walk you through that, and then matching the kid to the mentor, and then checking in. There's paperwork that you fill out each week as a mentor of how your time went, what happened, what'd you do, any concerns, things like that. And it's the director that will read that and follow up, and make sure that everything is running smoothly. That was a position we really weren't sure who God was going to bring before us, and and incredibly, Jill Wilson, our organist and choir director and bell choir director, so very musical in her uh, work here at the church, um, felt a real draw toward that position. Many of you maybe know that Jill's other job outside of the church has been with Lincoln Elementary, and she has a real heart for children, and she really felt the call to take on this position. And so she will be doing that role moving forward. So you might be hearing from Jill as she gives you a nudge to invest in a child's life. It's 1 hour a week. I did it a couple years ago. My student was a fifth grader, so she aged out of it. But I still keep in touch with that student because it's such a meaningful thing. Like you walk in feeling like, what do I have to offer? You have yourself to offer. You have your attention and your time, and just being able to listen and to let them kind of guide the way. Um, I think there was only one time that I had to like look up on my phone how to divide fractions because they had some math homework left, but it's also not my job to teach it to them. But I really loved that experience, and if I had more time in the week, I would 100% do it again, and I would recommend that if you are wondering, "What could I do? What could I do to make a difference in the community?" This is one way that I 100% believe that you would make an incredible difference. Um, and again, the biggest thing you'd be doing is showing up, showing up. And so if you have interest in being a Kids Hope mentor, Jill Wilson is the person that you need to talk to. And you find Jill here at the church on any of our traditional Sundays. Um, and you can also contact her via her contact information. So, yeah, all the positions are filled, and they're filled with people that we already know and love. And I can't think of a better outcome than that. And I'm very excited because it was getting down to the wire because our children's ministry is going to be starting up again very shortly. Because next month, as in tomorrow, is already August, or well, I'm recording this. This week is already August. School will be starting up in a matter of weeks, and so we had to get our ducks in a row, but they're in a row. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. And I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful for, again, the SPR team and all the work that they've done. Also, shout out to Diane Kish. Diane is our financial assistant here at the church. She does a lot of things with our budget and making sure. And so she was working with them as well in making, figuring out like what we can offer, what makes the most sense. And um, yeah, we have some of the best people here, and I'm so grateful and so blessed, and I'm really looking forward to what this group of staff and the way that it's now configured, which again is always in flux, it's always changing a little bit. The way God is going to use that this year is pretty incredible. And so I hope that clears some things up for you. If you ever have any questions about anything that leadership team is doing, questions about the way that we're structured or staff, or who do I talk to about this or that or the other thing, please never hesitate to let me know. If I can't answer it, there's a good chance I know who could, because I don't know everything. But what I've learned in my time in ministry, which has been 10 years already somehow, um, it's not about knowing everything, it's about knowing who might know. And so that's been a big philosophy of mine. Surround yourself with amazing people, it makes you look good, right? So from when I look at our staff, I feel like, man, they're making me look pretty awesome. And I'm for it. So that's really great. What do we have coming up? VBS is coming up this next week already. On 7th through the 10th is VBS. So I want to make sure that you get signed up for that. If you haven't already, also, if you'd like to donations, we do the Friday night meal. And so if you would like to donate toward that, you certainly can. And we'd be happy to have you do that. And then don't forget, August 11th, we will be having worship at Riverside Park with a potluck to follow. If the weather is not cooperative, which happens, it happened last year, we will be having worship at the church right next to the community library with a potluck to follow. And so we just want to make sure that you get that on your calendar. There will not be worship in this building at First United Methodist on August 11th. It will not be here. It will be elsewhere. So get that on your calendar. And it's also going to be our backpack blessing that day. So if you are a student heading back to school, if you are a teacher, administrator, staff person, bus driver, whatever, if you are connected to the school system, bring a bag, bring a backpack. We want to bless you as well. So we'll be doing that in conjunction again with the UCC Church and Trinity Lutheran. Been very pleased to work with both of those churches. We actually wrote this year's VBS together. There's another word, and I'm not sure what it is. We wrote it in conjunction. No, we wrote it collaboratively. I think that's it. And so I'm really proud of it. Really proud of it. And I think you're going to want to come check it out. So with that, I hope that you're having a great summer. I hope this heat and humidity are not making you miserable. And I hope to see you in worship very soon. Until next time. God bless. Thank you for joining us for this episode of What's Going On, a video and audio podcast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. We'd love to have you join us for worship on Sundays at 10 a.m., either in person or via our live stream, which can be found at our website, www.firstumcyankton.org or by searching First UMC Yankton on YouTube.